Looks like we are live. Let me make sure we've got audio. 1 second. Refresh that. Come on. Yep, okay. So maybe the new YouTube, God, it's already starting where I can't talk. Maybe the new YouTube streaming thing might actually be kind of cool because that was way easier than it used to be. I apparently just need to learn how to work the things. I'm trying to get the email to load. For some reason, my tablet is being stupid. Hold on 1 second. Let me try. I haven't used my tablet since October, apparently, according to this. So it's not wanting to load the emails like I need it to. Actually, it's not wanting to respond to anything like it needs to. Hold on 1 second. We will... Okay, there we go. We are good. I need to read the emails on a different screen so I don't give away anybody else's. Whoops, you guys don't need that screen. Let's get the right screens up. 1 second here. That one, and then I need this one. Okay, I think we are good. And okay, I have what I need up. So for tonight's live stream, these all came from Patreon. If you are a patron, you have all the info on how to send these to me. And I initially planned on only doing this as a Patreon one. I mean, open for everyone to watch, but taking Patreon submissions, I've been promising you guys this forever. I thought that I would do it as just enough to fill in, take a few submissions, enough to fill in the 2-hour stream, but it turned out so many of you guys wanted the critiques. So this weekend for Patreons only, instead of having our regular lesson, I'm good, which is good because that means I can put a little bit more time into my current project that I haven't started yet. So I'm going to do go ahead and reopen submissions from patrons. That's over on Patreon now, and I'm going to put another post just to update anyone who may have missed it, because I had a lot of people who missed out on the submissions because they were asleep when I asked for them. So those I will be taking for the next till Saturday. We're going to do that live stream. So again, for patrons, if you still wanted to submit for a critique, go ahead and send those to me. That information, God, I cannot talk, I'm tired. Information is over on, it's the most, I think, recent post on Patreon, but I will post another one so everyone gets that email, just so if you had wanted to submit and I updated it that I wasn't taking any more submissions, well, I reopened it so we can have our own separate, or another one on Saturday that'll probably, I'm guessing, be about 3 hours. I'll try to get everyone as much as possible. So for today, these ones are all coming from Patreon. The next live stream that I do, well, not next live stream, but the next time that I do a critique, those are going to come from MeWe, and I have a link to that in the video description, so make sure you're signed up there. It's like Facebook, but good. It's pretty much what Facebook was when they started, where you actually got to see the content you wanted and not what they curated for you or decided. So I'm a huge fan of MeWe, if you can't tell. I'm not like, there's no sponsorship or anything there. It's just a really good platform. But that's where we're going to take the next batch of critiques. So, be a member over there. So when I open that up, you guys are ready. So for this, just a quick disclaimer before I get started. As always with critiques, this is just my advice, what I would give to students. There's no one right or wrong way to view art. You may not agree with me. That's totally okay. And if I give you something that you feel is negative or you didn't like it, I mean, it's art. Do it though. If you like the results you're getting, then ignore me. What I have to say doesn't matter as long as you're happy with what you're creating. So I don't want you to feel like my opinion is the only right opinion. It depends on what you're trying to create. And that's why whenever I take critique submissions, I always ask for what your goals for the project were, because I feel that's very important for me to know. Because if I'm telling you, yeah, this color just doesn't work, but that color combination was your goal, or whatever it may be, that's why I always ask what your goals are, because that is so important when trying to critique someone's work. So let's go. I'm not going to be answering a bunch of questions tonight. I may answer a couple if I catch them, but because I do want to get through as many of these critiques as possible, if I get done a little early, then we can go ahead and do a Q&A at the end. But it depends on how long all of this takes, because I tend to ramble. So let me make sure we're all good. Okay. So for this first one, this comes from Shelby, and Shelby said she's titled this Lion and the Butterflies, and she said it's an original oil painting on a 19 by 22 inch canvas. Her goal was realism. She said, I've done very few oil paintings and mainly work in acrylics, but I love the results I got with this piece. Hope to improve and get more realistic results in my paintings. So this is really cool. Actually, this, excuse me, this reference photo, let's get rid of this for a second and blow this guy up a bit. This is the painting itself. Now that reference photo that I had up, you may already be noticing things that may be different. I don't know for sure if that's the reference photo because that wasn't submitted. But it probably is because it's like one of the first things that comes up on, what's it called? Pixabay. But I mean, they all look kind of similar, so we can use that to get a general idea. So the thing that I love about this, I love the combination. This is just personal preference. Love the combination of color mixed with black and white. I think it's just striking. Like it makes for a very beautiful art piece that isn't just, looks like a photograph of an animal. So I think that's really cool. Really like that. One tip that I would give you as far as the butterfly goes, see how all of the butterflies, there's a slight difference on the guy. Actually, let me go ahead and grab whoops, that's not what I need. Need my handy little tail arrow. So let's shrink that arrow down. This guy seems a little bit different. His wings a little bit angled in, but for the most part, and you do have variation as far as the details. Like this guy has beautiful detail and shading. These guys are kind of lacking compared to this guy. This guy in the bottom corner is just like, it looks like a lot more work was put into him. And it looks like you use different reference photos, but what I would suggest, and this can be really hard to find, whether it be butterflies or fish, those are the two I always have a really hard time finding interesting angles for the reference photo. Try to get some when you're painting or drawing butterflies, same thing with fish. Like with fish, most people take photographs side view, so you see the whole fish. But when you're doing a painting and you do everything side view, yeah, you can see the whole fish, but now it doesn't have that depth where you feel like you're looking at the natural movement of fish. So when I paint like a marine scene, most of the fish may be sideways, but I will usually try to angle towards the viewer, swimming away from the viewer. A variation of different angles like that is going to really give you a more natural feel as far as that goes. And butterflies, I run into the same problem. Most people post photos of butterflies, like if you go to Pixabay, like what you found, where the wings are completely flat open. And that is definitely something that I would recommend when you're looking for reference photos. Try to get some variation to where some are maybe sideways, something like that, so it's not all exactly the same. So that would be one tip there. Now my next tip, you said you're working towards realism, and let me pull up, this is a reference photo that is very similar. May not be exact, but it's pretty dang close. So let's go ahead and move him over so we can look at this a bit better. Okay, so this guy, and again, I apologize to anyone asking questions tonight. This isn't our normal Q&A. This one, in order for me to get through a lot of these submissions, I'm not going to be doing the normal Q&A unless we have time at the end, which I don't know if we will. So for this guy, few things. One, I'm not certain this was the same reference photo, but it's pretty darn close. There's a few differences that might be angle-wise, but even without that, the first thing that I notice on yours, and again, this isn't just comparing to the reference photo I pulled up. This is just to kind of show us. Oh, it is the same reference. Oh, good. Shelby's here. So the drawing is not accurate. So if you're going for realism, step one, if that means you trace your work, then you trace your work. That's how you're going to learn to do things more accurately. And over time, your work is going to become more and more accurate when you freehand. The goal when I encourage students to trace, the goal is not for you to forever be dependent on tracing. That's not it at all. The goal is for you to start noticing doing things correctly over and over again. So if I have a student trace, let's say a rose 10 times, 12 times, 11 times, it's going to be pretty freaking accurate. Like it is going to be close. If I have that same student freehand that rose 10, 12 times, hopefully it starts to improve. But more often than not, when people are beginning, they make the same mistakes again and again and again. And this is why tracing, it starts forcing your brain to see things as they really are versus what your brain is like, no, I know what a rose looks like. I don't need your help. I don't even need that reference photo. I'm good. So this is one of the reasons that I really recommend trace things if you need to. If you're having a hard time getting things exact, and we can definitely see where some things are just not drawn correctly, close. Like I can see you are going to be very good at drawing, and that's why I was able to, I mean, the fact that I was able to tell, I was pretty sure this was the reference photo because I can see what you're looking at. You're noticing things, and that's a big deal. I can see what you're noticing, so you will be great at this. Don't take this as like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough at drawing. You will be. But take a little bit more time before you ever start painting, and make sure that the drawing is accurate, because two things are going to happen. I've seen where people, and I think we've got a critique coming up later, where they were focusing more on the fur, but the drawing was inaccurate. Okay, when you're working on fur and you're learning to draw fur, you've got to look, I need to be able to look at the reference photo and go, okay, I'm working on this area of the hair or by the ear, and it curves down and then it comes up and then it goes, okay, but if my ear's not in the exact right place, I can't make that judgment as easily. So you're making your job a lot harder to learn if the base drawing is inaccurate. So that is my biggest thing, is just start with that super, super accurate drawing. You've done good with starting to get some of the shading, but we can see a lot of areas here. Like actually, let's take this just to show ourselves. Let's go, edit image. What am I looking at? Pay attention. There we go. Okay, so if we go black and white on this guy, there are a few things we can really see right off the bat. Look at the difference between, let's drag this over here so he has one. Look at the lights and how light those lights are. Your lights aren't nearly light enough. Everything is fairly dark. So you've got most of your darks are dark enough, which is good. That's a very big deal. Now you've got to work on getting those lights light enough. Get that contrast in there. The contrast, getting accurate lights and darks, is going to help your work to look more realistic. And people, one of the big complaints that a lot of people will say is they feel their work looks cartoony. That's not what you've said, but I mean, it's something I hear a lot, that the work looks cartoony. If you want to get your work away from looking too cartoony, one of the big things you can do is get your values correct. Lights light enough, darks dark enough. So even if something is not drawn correctly, if you get the correct values, that alone adds a lot to the piece. So in this case, you want to get those lights lighter. That would make a big difference. Now, it does, like I can see the glare from the photo. Taking photos of things that have a dark background is difficult, and especially oils because they shine. So I think that's part of what's happening here. I have a feeling yours actually has a bit more contrast in person as far as things being darker, but the lights, look at those lights. And then this eye is weird on this one, and that is mainly just because the initial drawing isn't accurate. So it looks weird that it's just like this blacked out area. Now here, it's not, and one thing you do want to watch, we can actually do that real quick on here. Give me 1 second. I don't have my brushes set up at all. So here we've got a little, let's pull, you are in my way. We'll just go a little bit lighter here. If you look at the reference photo, there's this little teeny right in there. Whoops, too big and wrong color. Let's go a little bit further over and thin that out a bunch. There's a little eyelid right in here. I don't know if you guys can see this, but you can see the shine of the eyelid just a little bit right in here. And that alone, mine's not exactly in the right place, but that alone is going to make a difference. And you can see it on the reference. Whoops, that's not the right thing. You can see on the reference photo here. Look at right in here. There's that little shine. And these are the things that you want to be paying attention to. As you're working to improve your realism, these little details, these little things really make a difference. And yeah, my little thing right there is completely in the wrong place, but you get the idea. So those are my tips on this guy. Get a more accurate drawing, get your lights and darks. I mean, you've got shadows under the nose, like things are kind of angled. Your perspective is kind of all over the place. Get that solid, more accurate drawing, and get those lights lighter in this case. Usually you hear me say get your darks darker. I think your darks are pretty good. Well, I can tell that there's glare on the photo. So if the glare wasn't there, I'm imagining that those darks are really good, but get those lights where they need to be a bit lighter, and that will give you a lot more depth. Okay. Oh, good. Is it 1080 tonight? I screwed up my OBS and I don't know how that happened. One of the OBS settings was not, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So let's go ahead and close this guy down. Next, we have from Veek. Let's go ahead and save this cat. Now we have no reference photo, so I can't really compare as far as that goes. And let's see what he has to say. Oh, actually, let's open it. Sorry, so many windows to go through. Coffee break while I search. Okay, here we go. So there is that, and let's see what he has to say about this piece. Whoops, that is not how I'm going to search for these. 1 second. Okay. He said, this is for Veek. He said, I regret it will not be present on Wednesday. He was wondering how to finish this, both technique and amount of detail. I'm still an early but enthusiastic learner. So I assumed this was finished because it was signed. As far as how to finish it, I mean, one of the requirements I do when I do critiques is that they need to be finished already. So I'm going to judge this as though it's finished. I mean, it's got a date and a signature, so that's where I'm going to. So on here, we're kind of going back to the lion where you want to start with an accurate drawing. Now, and again, when I go back to tracing to improve your drawing skills, I don't mean trace all the time either. While you're learning, trace, like let's say this cat, trace it maybe 10 times, 5 times, whatever, and then freehand it. I'm not trying to get people dependent on forever tracing. I want you to improve your freehanding skills. And one of the best ways, and for anybody, I'm going to have somebody watch this and do the whole, oh my gosh, tracing's cheating. I've been teaching for 20 years. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. This is one of the most effective ways I have found to get someone to draw accurately very quickly from photograph. So that would be my first thing. I mean, I can see where some of the stuff is off, like the eyes are kind of shaped not right there. As far as the colored pencil, because this isn't finished, I'll just go over this quickly. Like I said, I really only want to work with or focus on completed pieces, but more layers, lots more layers. I do like, you can see that the hair or the fur is going in the right direction. Big deal. So that is really cool. The stripes on the forehead, bit too like heavy dark stripes, and when you're working in colored pencil, I wouldn't recommend ever just making a big dark stripe. So what I would do instead, so let's go ahead and pull, let's see if this brush stroke, oops, convert to a normal layer. Can I actually draw? Oh no, I should actually choose what I want, huh? Okay, so as you're drawing, little pencil strokes. One heavy line like you've done isn't going to give you the look that you're going for. The entire time that you're building up fur, when you're drawing fur, don't, like, let's say you're drawing a tiger, you're not just going to do harsh lines where the stripes are. We're going to do these little guys and build it up so that it looks like actual fur. See how I'm layering that in? We want it to look like fur all going through. I'm starting to scribble now. Don't scribble. But break it up so that it's fur from the beginning. Not like right now it's hard for me to do because I'm countering the fact that there's already these heavy, harsh lines. You're not gonna, you can kind of fix it if you make each line wider, but they're gonna be probably wider than you intended them to be. These are very, not what you're going for. We want to get these, let's go ahead and widen this just a bit. Start just so you can see a bit more. See how you start building these hair marks from the beginning. No heavy lines from the beginning like that. That's just too hard for you to fight against and fix. So that would be my big thing there. And then of course, going back to get a more accurate drawing before you start shading, especially colored pencil. I mean, I would say do that for any medium, but colored pencil especially. Let's say the eyes are drawn, they're not quite the exact right shape. You can't, once you start in with colored pencil, you're not going to fix it. I mean, minor things you can fix, but not if it's very extreme. So you want to make sure that that drawing is super, super accurate before you ever take that color to the paper. And I would say that for any medium, but colored pencil is one of the least forgiving when that comes. So make sure that you spend the extra time. If I do a portrait, if I freehand a portrait, I'm going to spend on average 2 days just for the drawing. just making it perfect, every little thing, tweaking things and making sure everything's exact. It's one of the reasons that I trace so much more often, because I want everything exact, checking my work against itself. So one of the things that you can do to make sure that your drawings are accurate from the beginning, measure something, look at your reference photo, and let's say we go back to that line, the distance between the eye and this eye is maybe 3 eyes wide or 9.5. I don't know what it is. I don't have it in front of me, but check yourself and then go to your work. Okay, do I have the same amount of, or the same distance between the eyes on mine? These are things that you can do, and I'll show a better example when I get another one with a reference photo on checking your work against itself. So we'll come back to that, but that is it for this guy. Let's see who we have next. Next is Jamie. Oops, that's a document. What? Why is that not coming up? And I had saved that one to my computer. Maybe I just can't preview. Let's see what happens if I do this. And there were 2 on this one. I opened on my phone just fine because I looked at it earlier. Back to this and... Okay, good. It came in. So this is Jamie's. Oops, I'm drawing on things. Don't do that. And this, there's a bit of a story about this. It was that she got out of painting and drawing for a while, and she's just now getting back into it. So she had painted this one back, I want to say she said it was 2015. Let's see. Yeah, and she's working on another one with a similar type background, kind of based off this. So this is a very stylized look, which I love. So I'm not going to critique it quite the same that I would the average, realism that words are hard. So in this one, the first thing, which is funny that I noticed, because you can see that this is broken up into 2 halves. You've got this like purplish blue over here in the sky, and then on this side, I mean, you've got 2 definite halves here, which is kind of cool. There's the one thing that I didn't like, but it turned out that it was just a mistake. See this line going right up the middle in here? That was just something that went wrong with the resin. So I was glad that that was explained to me, because that was kind of a weird thing. But anyway, on this one, I don't have much to critique. But I can point out the things that I like. One thing that's kind of odd, I get that it's separated in halves, which on a canvas this thin, you're gonna be in halves. You're not gonna separate this into like full thirds, or it's harder to work with the rule of thirds or something like that, and sometimes centering things works. I'd be curious though to see what would happen if the sun was off in the corner opposite of her, and then the light, you can still have it fade out, whether it be with clouds or whatever. But this style of painting, you also like, if it were realistic, I would point out that the perspective is off her versus the thing. But this style of painting has this really cool, almost eerie feel to it, because the perspective is slightly off all the time, usually intentionally. Now, I don't know if Jamie intended it to be a little bit kind of skewed. Oh, good, Jamie is here. I'm not sure if you intended this to be slightly like perspective a little bit off, but I see this more often than not with this style of work, and it works. It is one of very few styles that I really like when the perspective is just slightly tweaked to where you look and you're like, okay, it's off, but it's not off. It just works. It just stays with that feel. I really like what was done with the sky. I like what was done with the background. Now, the one thing I would say that you might want to do, if you're going to do something where you've got it split, like in this case down the middle, or even split on the third, wherever you have a split, make it a little bit more obvious that it's intentionally 2 different pieces. Right now, it took me a minute to realize that you've got 2 halves that they work together, but they're not exact. Like, I mean, her half versus the half with I guess they're poppies or flowers. So I would probably work to make sure it was a little bit more obvious, but at the same time, you've got this nice flow. I mean, the bubbles themselves kind of carry the work from one side into another. So that's kind of your thing that's uniting both pieces. But it looks, and maybe I'm interpreting this wrong, but it looks like you're supposed to have 2 different halves that are like almost 2 scenes working together. You might try to hype up that contrast between the light and the dark a little bit. Might be cool. definitely was intentional, she said. The halves were supposed to be night and day. Okay, so the night side does not look like night to me. It's cool looking. It's very cool looking, but I would hype up that contrast. I think that would be really, really neat. And it's hard for me to judge this style any further than that, just because it's not a style I work in, other than I can look at it and go, I've always loved this style. I have a few friends who've painted this way. Lisa Ballard is one. She paints some stuff like this, and they're amazing if you look her up. It's beautiful. But yeah, I would not have guessed that was supposed to be night. That wasn't my first thought there. So I would just hype up that contrast a little bit more to better achieve that. And I think on your second one, it was very obvious. So she sent me another one. I don't have it on here, but she sent me another one that she's working on, and it is obvious that they are two separate parts, which is really cool. So no, I really like this. I love the bubbles. I love the way that they're tying everything in together. Very, very cool. But that's all I've got for this one. This is a good example, though, of, we talk about perspective and the importance of perspective. There is a time and there are styles where you intentionally want perspective to be off. And I think the key there is when it's done intentionally. So like if we look at the road looks almost like a wall. It's going up, not out this way. So if we were working in something that was more with realism, we would want that the yellow brick road there to be more, I think that's what it is. It has a very Wizard of Oz is what it makes me think of. But you would flatten it out so you were looking at it more this way. Right now it's this way, like a wall. So normally I would say that needs to be fixed. That 100% needs to be. This style is one case where that being off, it's obvious that it's off. And it's almost like you're looking down here, but you're looking at this angle, so you're coming at it from different angles, and it gives you a very, eerie may not be, maybe it is the right word, but this slightly off feel, and it just goes with the piece. And so there's so often you'll hear somebody tell you, don't do this with art, or don't do that with art, this needs to be fixed, that needs to be changed. There are always cases where those rules should be broken. It works with the style. So anyway, really, really cool piece. I love the softness of everything. The way that it's blended, you're really good at that style. That is beautiful. Okay. Next we have, oh, there you go. There's the one she's working on now in progress. So you can see the two halves are much more obvious which is which. So big improvement there. As far as separating those two. Okay, let's see. We have Frances has, oh, this is pretty. I saw this one last night. I didn't get a chance to look through most of these, but that is really pretty. Okay. Okay, whoops, and now I have two arrows for some reason. I don't need two arrows. One arrow was enough. Okay, here we go. So a few things I want to point out first on this that I really like. Let's look at the coloring that was used. Actually, let's make sure there was nothing specific that she mentioned. This one is a 20 by 28 inch on gallery wrap canvas. It's an acrylic. Goal is to have a realistic painting, but I know I'm not up to the level of photorealism. I would appreciate any suggestions. So I mean, yeah, okay, it's not, photorealism, but it's awesome. You've got a consistency in those brushstrokes. And I talk about, you guys on Patreon especially hear me talk about this all the time. You don't want things to be too consistent. You want some variety in there with the brushstrokes, but the style is what I mean here on the consistency. I like the way, if you look at the back here of the tiger, let's get my handy arrow that everyone probably wishes I would lose. The back here, look how, soft this is. You don't have a bunch of forced detail back here, so that pulls your attention over here. The brush strokes in here, this is beautiful. I really, really like this. Few things, whoops, get an arrow, go away. I'm trying to get rid of you. Oh, I should actually hit the right button then. A few things on here. One, look at how the top of the head is just up against the top of the canvas. As a general rule, composition-wise, what I like to do is either the subject is at least an inch away, or let's say it's a foot, whatever. It's either an inch away from the edge of the canvas or it goes right off the canvas. One or the other, pick one. It's fine if it goes off the canvas, but when it just barely touches, it kind of draws your attention right off. And I know that seems weird. You would think, well, if it went off the canvas, wouldn't that draw attention off more? No. When it's just at the edge, it looks a little weird, and especially when you frame it, the frame's going to overlap that canvas just a bit. it's just a good idea. Let's either go off the canvas or be inside of it a little bit more. So there's number one. The next thing, one of the things that I'm really liking on the color of the tiger, I like that you didn't just go through and go, okay, here's my perfect tiger orange color, whatever that would be, and paint that for everything. You've got variation in here where you've got almost a magenta, you've got some, like under the orange, you've got the oranges, you've got, it looks like burnt sienna, there's some brownish tones. I mean, you've got this variety to where it has a very natural feel. So that is really working for you. It looks like the drawing is fairly accurate. Now, when we look at it, oh, I was totally looking at this wrong. So this is actually the baby, I thought that was the mom's leg in front. That's actually the baby's body. And this is where things kind of get a little bit weird for me that you would want to spend a little bit more time on. The body, I'm pointing at it, you can't see because I'm pointing at my screen, but the body here of the tiger, look at how the baby and the mom, I don't have your reference photo, but see how everything is, yeah, that's not in there. They're exactly the same values. There's no variation between the two. And so it's blending in. And I actually thought that was supposed to be her leg when I initially looked at it, which now that I've seen it correctly, obviously it's not, but there's a little bit of, it's flat is where I'm going with that. So while you've got the really good variety or variation in there with the fur tone, so it's not just one solid color, it's still the two are too exact. So with the mom, either with her, you might try darkening some up, and I'm going to do a really bad Photoshop job here just because it'll be quick. Let's see, what brush do I want? Actually, should choose a brush that will work better. That is a big image. There we go. We'll go with that, and that works. And I'm just going to darken this a bit. Okay, not that much. So if we pull this back, you know, again, this would be easier with your reference photo, but I can almost guarantee that your reference photo has some variation in here. It would just have to, unless, I mean, you'd have to have like lighting in a weird, in order for both this guy up front and for the mom behind to be exactly the same, there'd have to be some weird lighting going on. So that's, see how if we just push her back a little. And then just in general, let's get some depth in there. I really wish I had the reference photo. I could do a lot more with that. But if we can kind of adjust for some of this so that there's a bit more separation between the two, that's really going to help. The white, next thing is your whites are all just flat white. So white is rarely going to be white. Let me see if I've got a tiger that will give us a bit more. I can pull up one of mine just to make it quick. And by quick, we know it's never quick. Let's see. What am I looking for? Open a new window. Okay, there's two that I'll pull up that we can look at. So I want to bring him in, and I want to bring this one, if I can find it. Here we go. Is that the actual print? I don't know if that's the print. So let's look at the whites of these guys. Look at the difference here. So I like the color. And now one of the things that I have a tendency to do, because you can look at that and go, oh, mine has more browns, yours has more oranges. I'm fine with that. I actually like the hyped up color saturation. I think that's really cool. But look at the whites. They're not white. You don't want so much white, and having that much white flattens everything like crazy. Look at the shadows, look at the darks. Very, very little actual white. The white should only be your brightest highlights. White is reflective. It's going to pick up everything around it. It's never just white. I mean, in my studio here, I have a picture frame. It's white, like white. The studio is gray. That picture frame, if I were to paint that, would be a fairly medium to light gray. I wouldn't even use white other than to lighten the gray a little bit. But you don't want so much white in the fur there, or no matter what it is. If you're painting a rose, the white is not going to be white. So again, we can come back to this guy. The difference you can see there, he has more white than the one with the damask in the background. So there is more white there. That is a terrible photo. That photo has not been edited. That's way too washed out. Do I have a better one? Because that's not a good one. That's not it. Is that the one? Would that look better? It's a little bit better. Clearly I need to get a better photo of that. So this guy's on the easel, but you can still see the whites are not that bright. Even they're just at the brightest points. Everything else, look in the chest and the neck here. You've got, purples, browns, sepia tones. There's just tons of other colors in there. The whitest white just for your highlights. You don't want quite so much in there. So those are my tips for that guy. And then double check the drawing because there are you're close, but I can definitely see there are a few things that are a bit off, like on the head here. Double check that. The baby's face, there's some tweaking that could be done there. So make sure, like always, that you've got a real solid, accurate drawing to start with. So, and then the grass, I actually really like how you've done the grass. Now this is important when you're drawing grass. Look at the tones that she's got here. Just have to check who the name was. Francis, yes, she. I guess that could be a he too. I think it's a she. I don't know. I'm sorry. The grass, see how we've got, start with that dark, you've got the dark black or dark green in the background. You get to a lighter green and a lighter green and a lighter green as you come forward. That variation in those greens is a really big deal in making things look more natural. So I really like the way that you painted that. And you do have the clumps and clusters. You do want to watch because on some of these I can see you just kind of make wiggles going through. Look at your reference photo a little bit closer, but you're doing really good there. That's good. So those are my tips for that guy. That's a really nice painting though. And for all of these, you guys should seriously be proud of yourself. Please do not be ever discouraged by tips that somebody gives you. It just hopefully one more thing to help you move forward a bit more. So this is from, let's see, Lacey, Erica. And she's included, we've got her reference photo, so let's go ahead and save that. And the artwork. Oh, Angela said, looks like my images are in the body of my email and not attached to separate files. I'll check that when we get there. Okay. Oh, I guess I can close the tiger. Don't need. Okay, so we've got our reference photo and the artwork. And Erica said, this is a 7x9, so it's not very big, on Faber-Castell, or pastel matte, Faber-Castell Polychromos. It was accepted into a juried exhibition. Congratulations. But I'd like to improve on technique for my next project. Okay. So the main thing that I'm seeing here, it looks like it's pretty accurate on the drawing. It looks great there. The main thing, let's go ahead and shrink you down a bit, maybe a bit more. The main issues that the things that I would change, look at your color. Look how much more vibrant the color is on the reference photo. So slow down. First tip, slow way down. This would be a good example, like kind of more of a, maybe you're halfway done. Keep working on what you have here. So you've got just a solid base. This looks really accurate with your drawing, your highlights, your shadows. They're all in the right location. Now you need to hype all that up. Darks even dark. Well, I mean, some of the darks are dark enough, but some of the darks around the chest, under the face, you've got it, but the chest could definitely be a lot darker. And if you darken up the darks, then your brighter areas will feel that much brighter. You have a couple areas that could be a bit brighter above the eye, and this little area under the purple patch, that purple patch really could be a lot darker. Now, that is a bit of a challenge, and especially with polychromos, they're not super opaque. And with colored pencil, one of the challenges that we always have is that the purples, the pinks, if you want a vibrant, bold color, that's hard to find in colored pencil. It just is. And so sometimes we just have to deal with the fact that the color may be a bit more muted than what we would like it to be. And I think that's the case here because that purple is not going to be as bold as what you've got in the reference photo, but you can make it more bold than what it is here. And the way that I would achieve that, Play around with mixing blues and reds instead of just depending on your purple pencil. Mix your blues and reds. Try it on a scratch piece of paper, but see what happens when you mix and layer those on top of each other a bit more to hype up that contrast, to really get that to full on stand out. The greens and blues of the body. So he is very similar to, if we paint a peacock or like the hyacinth macaw, you guys have that's up over on Patreon now. The hyacinth macaw, I talked about that, where you're mixing like bluish greens and purple, or I'm sorry, greenish blues. I just said that in that video too. Greenish blues and purplish blues. You're kind of mixing them, and I don't mean overlapping them so much as one area has more of a purpley blue and the area right next to it, touching it, has a greenish blue. And when those two are up against each other, that's part of what helps you to get that really shimmery look. That in addition to the high contrast, and you can see that on the feathers, especially around his head and under his wing, that high contrast. The feathers under his wing in the green patch there, go more like a Kelly green or like a green. Like, don't be afraid. Make it bold. Right now, it's safe. It's beautiful. It's really cute photo, but you went safe. Take it another step further. The thing that'll push you ahead of other artists is to not be safe. Push that contrast. Get the higher contrast. I would rather see too much contrast than not enough. The too much contrast will draw attention. Where not enough contrast, people just will look at it and go, it's pretty, and then they move on. People are drawn to things that have a super high contrast. You know, your dark's really dark, light's really light. In the wing, you could be pulling, what is it? And I always say it wrong. I say caput mortem, and I know that's not it. I'd pull some of that into that wing, get those purpley pink colors in there. Under, and of course, hype up the green. I would get some yellows, but then really make those dark greens. And the green shifts from a yellowy green all the way over to a bluish green under the wing there. Look at the transition between the types. And you hear me talk about all the time that color is not a big deal. Normally it's not, but you still want to watch in a case like this where you're trying to create that shimmery look, capturing, is it a bluish green or a purpley green? I mean, these are the questions. That's about as far as I go when I look at, color theory. Like, is it blue green or purple green? Is it closer to red on the color wheel if I'm looking at purple, or is it closer to blue on the color wheel if I'm looking at purple? Those are the questions that I kind of ask myself when I'm deciding which colors to choose. But I think getting more variation on that, and great thing, if you get your work to this stage, the things I'm talking about, they don't take very long. You already did the hard work. The hard stuff's there. Your detail's phenomenal. Everything's beautiful. So that's really good. Now, the other thing that I would point out, just the crop of the piece, I would play around with. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we were to start a new project. Let's say we went maybe 11, let's try an 11 by 14 just because it's standard. Okay, and let's shrink these guys down because they're kind of in our way. And let me do a layer fill real quick. Pull that down, and we'll just color match to something in there so it's close. It's not exact, but it gives us an idea because just the difference in the photo here where it's faded, parts in the dark, parts in the light. So let's see what would happen. Let's say if it was a standard 11 by 14. I mean, even if you don't enlarge him and just kind of move him around and see what the overall composition might be, the different feel there. Actually, let's do this just to soften the edges a bit because it's a little bit harsh and it's kind of creating a weirdness. Too much. I just want to go a little bit, kind of soften those. Where is my pen? We're just gonna kind of erase some of that. So he's gonna have a weird glow, but right now that harsh line's a little distracting. Oops, too much. Okay. I mean, it's still there, but whatever, it's softer. I want to show you what will happen. One of the things that I like to try to do, if you're having trouble ever with composition and deciding what the best layout is going to be, look at the rule of thirds, and you can get a, is it this one? Or nope, not that one. We're gonna pull up this one. Actually, we should probably just keep this open because I'm gonna need that again. Oops, yeah, fine. Okay, so I'm gonna take the rule of third. We'll just shrink that down, size it to this. So, and not everything, when it comes to the rule of thirds, not everything needs to follow the rule of thirds. Don't feel like this is something you always have to do. It's a guideline, that's it. But if you're ever struggling, you're thinking, I wonder if it might look a little bit better if I adjusted this, if I changed it. What if it did follow the rule of thirds? Would it look better? More often than not, it does. So let's pull that down even more. So what the rule of thirds are, you have your lines here. You just separate your painting or your canvas size, whatever, into those 3 areas. And the rule of thirds, and obviously I changed your, Bert, whoops, that's not what I'm looking for. What we're looking for is how, if we fit him with that rule, could we give him like a more pleasing composition? Make it a little bit more artsy, I guess, than just being kind of squared off and centered on the piece. I mean, this actually isn't even a rule of thirds. I'm just kind of, yeah, I think I like it better that way than I would with the thirds. I mean, you know, playing around where having a blank spot on your canvas, that empty space, that's part of the art too. Where is your empty space? So here I've got him filling the upper 2 sections. I don't want to go too close to the edge, and then 1/3 here. Actually, it may even look better too. What if he filled one section and you had a lot of white showing through? That can sometimes look really neat. You know, play around with that versus just cropping it to where the wing, everything's almost up at the edge. I'm not saying any of these are perfect. I would spend a bit more time making that decision. I wouldn't do it real quick now. But if we look at the artwork itself, he's just cropped so center. And I get it, it's a study, but he's so center. And see how his tail is barely touching the edge, his beak's almost touching the edge, the wings everything's almost touching the edge. Pull him in a bit more. Keep the viewer on your piece instead of them looking at it and the tail just dragging you off the canvas. So that would be something that I would suggest as far as composition. But the drawing, I love it. You've got it accurate. It's beautiful. I would hype up the contrast in your work and hype up the color saturation as well. Okay, next. We have Jenny. Ooh, that's pretty. Let's go ahead and save this. Now, here's a good thing. You know how I looked at it and my first thought was, ooh, I want to keep looking at this. Contrast. That's what got me on that. Contrast, dark darks, light lights. You've got depth in this piece. Let's get that actually in Photoshop so you can see the whole thing. But that first reaction of, ooh, that's what's creating it. That contrast is such a big deal. So let's pull him in. Oops, and let's see. Nope, I don't need you. Oops. There we go. Okay. So I don't think there's a reference photo with this guy, which I don't think is a big deal. On him, I can see he's really accurate. So this is Jenny. She said this is a 9.5 by 7. Wow. So that is not very big. That's a lot of detail for not very big. So this is about the size as the last one, which is interesting. Anyway, white pastel mat done with Derwent pastel pencils. Okay, so a bunch of different pastel pencils and pastel sticks, reference from Pixabay. Goal was photorealism and depth of field. First attempt using pastel and pastel mat. Interested to get an experienced opinion on anything I can improve. I know pastel pencils aren't one of your mediums. I actually think you would rock them though. They freak me out. I can't do with the feel of them. Just freaks me out with my hands. Let's see. She said she was happy with her final result, but lacks experience to really judge my own work. Hence, I'm jumping at the chance to get your input. Okay, so this is amazing. And like I said, what was the first thing you heard me say when I opened it? And that's just a natural reaction. Ooh, contrast. The contrast is what you guys want to get in your work. It makes such a difference in getting that initial look. Now, does that mean that something that doesn't have high contrast isn't good? No, not at all. But let's say you're at a gallery, and I've seen this over and over again. If you're in a gallery and you've got a piece, it could be drawn, and I'm not saying this is not drawn well, but let's say you have a piece that isn't drawn well, but it has high contrast. That's what people are going to be drawn to. Whereas something that may be technically more accurate, took longer, all of that, but it's all mid-range tones, the viewer is just going to walk on by and go to the one that may not be drawn as accurate, but it's got the contrast. That is the biggest thing, I think, with the work. And while I will always say, yeah, get a solid, accurate reference, or, you want that solid, accurate drawing, but still, that is a big deal. Now, on this one, I do like, how I say either go off the page or stay within an inch. Ears, totally fine with where they go off. A little bit weird on the chin to be cut off. And if the reference photo was cut off there, I probably would go ahead and find another photo where I could see the chin and just kind of put that in there. If I were going to crop the chin, I would probably just zoom in on the eyes and kind of skip everything else anyway. That's just me personally. But no, this is really, really nicely done. And like I said, it's that contrast. Look at how the darks are dark, the lights are light. I might hype up the contrast a little bit more. Let's see what happens if we play with that. And okay, so this is what I do with my work. I will take a photo when I think I'm sorry, my knee keeps hitting let's see if I can close that a little bit. I've got to tape this down or something, little handle on where the keyboard is sitting in this desk. But anyway, no one cares. I don't know what I'm telling you. But that's the little jingle you guys keep hearing. But one of the things that I like to do when I finish a piece or I think I'm about finished, I will take a photo, take it into Photoshop. I generally do it on my phone, hype up the contrast, and then just see if you like how it looks better. So let's go with him. Actually, I want to do this as two separate ones. Let's take this to maybe 20. We'll take it down so I can put the other one next to it. No, I want you both at 20. I'm really bad at Photoshop, apparently. Okay, so I can see them next to each other. Let's take this one here and adjust the contrast. And just really easily, I'm just going to mess with the curves. Pull the darks down, the lights up a bit. I personally like it. I like that higher contrast. Not a lot, just a little bit darker on the darks, a little bit lighter on the lights. Actually, the lights didn't lighten up that much. It's that the darks were a little, like the saturation pulled it up. I personally like that better. Totally up to you. And this is the thing. This is why I like to do it in Photoshop first before I do it on the artwork. Because maybe I'll hype up that contrast like that and go, not a fan. Don't really like it. Don't think I'm going to make that change. Instead of making the change and then realizing, not a fan. Wish I wouldn't have done that. I can do it in Photoshop or your cell phones. Take a photo with your cell phone. Mess with that contrast and see if you like it better when you hype that up. But it does draw your attention a little bit more. You can see, and I talk about this all the time, contrast. Hype up the contrast. Dark's darker, light's lighter. Things will be so much more interesting to look at. This is a beautiful piece. That's all I've got for that, guys. So we'll go ahead and close that off. And next, we have Holly. Whoops, I did not mean to click that way. I don't think there are. Is it attached? Here we go. It's attached at the bottom for some reason. Okay, hold on. I've got to get creative so I don't know if this is going to work that way. Okay, hold on. I'm trying not to expose anyone's email address to the world, but I have to open the email and let's squish it over here. Okay. Where were we? That is not where we were supposed to be. Critiques. Holly. Oops. I should hit right buttons. That would be amazing if I could learn to do that. Okay, is that it? 3? Yes. Okay. Okay, we are good there. And here we go. So we've got this guy and that guy, and there was a third one. And let's see what she has to say. So she said her medium of choice are oils and acrylic. There were 3 paintings I was choosing between sending you and abstract Pico. Okay. The piece I've chosen is an acrylic painting of a burrowing owl, 12 by 12 inches. I chose this piece because it was my first attempt at airbrushing in a background. I've always liked your airbrush background, so I thought I'd give it a try. Meh. This photos are okay. Okay. So 12 by 12 acrylic airbrush background. You weren't a fan? This is your first time airbrushing a background? You did good. That is awesome. So here's your reference photo and then the cropped painting. Actually, it looks like the one that's not cropped. The color is almost more... I wonder which one is more accurate. This one is smoother without the glare, it looks like. This one has a bit of glare. So that's interesting. Look at the difference. I think the lesson here is look at the difference of your photos you take when you post stuff online. Let's say you're posting for social media or if you're posting something to sell, try posting several photos like this is actually helpful for the buyer can know, okay, different lighting, different look, but that definitely gives it a bit of a different feel. So let's pull you down. Because on this one, on the one that's cropped, the background looks better. As far you can see the lights lighter, but on this one, you've got more of the darks. I'm not sure which. This one may be a little too dark, so this one probably, we'll go with it. This is the accurate one. Sorry, thinking out loud. So let's look at this guy. Wow, you did a good job capturing his expression. Now you've overdone the pupils a little bit with the brown. Typically in owls, you don't have the same look with an iris that you do on a person, and you've kind of created the look. You've almost humanized him, given him that human feel by creating eyes that looked more human. So with eyes, like the where you've got the brown, that's all pupil right there. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, that's all pupil. So it's cute, it looks awesome, but it's also, if you're going for something that is a bit more accurate, that is not. But let's see. Okay, so Jenny said, oh, Jenny said she sent a picture that was slightly overcropped. The chin is in the other one. Okay, so Jenny, for her tiger, she does have that. So that's good. So Jenny made the same call I would have been on that one. But with this guy, I really like him. So obviously you've got some differences in that the reference photo has more yellow in the feathers, yours has more orange. It's not a bad thing. I shift the color, and this is where I'm always telling you guys, color's not that big of a difference. He still looks just as realistic. He's just more shifted towards kind of a violety brown type color, or reddish browns versus more yellowy green browns. I like the changes made there. I think that looks really great. Now, I do think you can hype up the contrast a bit in the shadows. Right now, he's a little bit flat looking. So shadowed areas that I would hype up. Actually, I want to pull him into Lightroom would make this easier. So let's go ahead and open Lightroom, because the changes I want to make. Coffee break. Well, Lightroom loads. This could be a while. Okay. So the reason that I want to pull this in Lightroom, are you going to add? Did you add? What are you doing? Add? Him. Yes, please. Previously added. Okay. Previously added where? Did you put him at the end? Lightroom updated recently, and I don't know. It should be the first one here. What are you doing, Lightroom? Ugh, I need to not update things before. Okay, recently added. Just now. You. Okay. We'll do it that way. Okay, sorry about that. So one of the things that I like about Lightroom is I can adjust things. I can kind of paint a difference in contrast. So what I want highlights to stay the same, shadows and blacks to be a bit darker, whites can stay the same, saturation the same. That's all. I don't want to adjust. You'll see where I'm going with this in a second. I'm just making sure I don't change anything except that I want to darken certain things. So this guy, that is way too big of a brush. If we go back over here in Photoshop and look at the reference photo, if we look at right in on the owl's head, the one side, and I can see that your painting has the contrast there. But what if you hype it up a little bit more in order to get even more depth in the piece? So we had, oh, this is hard because I can't, why aren't you shrinking for me? Oh, there we go. Hold on. Trying to make it so I can still see the original here. I guess that's close enough. Okay, so what I want to do is, what if we just darken a bit more here? Let's pull that a bit more contrast. Let's hype that up a bit more. And the pen. So if we pull a bit more in here, a bit more under here, and I can actually go even darker. We can start getting a little bit more three-dimensional by where we darken things up. Pull the depth in here of these feathers. Let's pull the eyes a little bit richer. Again, if you're going for accurate, the brown ring around there I would not include. I would just make those solid black there. So let's go darkening here a bit more. And see, the reason that I switched this into Lightroom, if you guys are not familiar with using Lightroom, it allows me, I'm darkening up my darks, whereas when I do this in Photoshop, I'm kind of like paint over everything and make everything darker. Here, and there is a way to do it in Photoshop. I don't know how, because I'm not that good at it. But here, it's just super easy with Lightroom. I'm just telling it where that I want the darks darker, but to leave the lights alone, which is really cool. Look at how as I go through and just keep darkening the dark areas, look at how he starts becoming more and more three-dimensional. So what you have here, he's accurate. I mean, the main drawing is accurate. Your lights and darks are there. All I'm doing is making the darks a bit darker in order to get that three-dimensional we're going for. Now I'm going to do a new one. I'm going to pull just the brights a little bit brighter, just in a couple of areas. So I'm going to do the opposite. Whereas before I only darkened up the darks. Now I want on the light side, oops, just to lighten it up a bit more. Maybe a bit more than that. Pull the exposure up just a bit along there. But see how, again, just getting a little bit more with the shading there. So you are so close on this to being just, and even over the reference photo, he's got a little bit more depth now. But look at the difference there. So let's go ahead and save him and pull him over next to the original. He's going to go with Patron. Nope, not that one. Okay, so you go down here. I think it's this guy. Yep. Okay, so look now, when we look at these two side by side, it's minor. It's not a huge change. but the darks are a little bit darker. The lights are a little bit lighter. Not everywhere. That's the thing. I didn't just darken up all the darks on this one. I focused on areas of his head that were a little bit more in shadow versus the light on this side. So he's not at, and I wouldn't say that he's flat looking anyway, but I mean, look at how we can get even more depth, a little bit more depth by hyping up that contrast. Your light's a little bit lighter on the light side, your dark's a little bit darker on the dark side, but that gives us more dimension there. So that is, yeah, Nick says I can get almost all the same controls in Photoshop as I do in Lightroom. I just know how to do it. It's faster for me to switch into Lightroom. Believe it or not, I would be even slower in Photoshop. So yeah, that would be, and if you look at these, this is the funny thing. The average person who looks at the two next to each other there would be like, it's the same thing. What are you talking about? But as an artist, that's what you're going to start noticing the more you paint, the more you draw. These little things are the things that are really going to start standing out a bit more to you. And those little things are the things that will push your work up to that next level. They're minor. Like your family member will come in and go, yeah, it looks good. They'll come back in when you made these changes. Looks the same to me. They don't necessarily realize what they're looking at, but these are the things that you want to look at when you want to just keep pushing your art further and further and further. Start paying attention to those little things and what can you do to just punch it a little bit further with that three-dimensional feel. So, and what I've done is pretty much, I can see where the shadows are on this guy. I just made them a bit more. You don't feel like you need to follow your reference photo like it's a recipe that has to, it's not math. It's not a math equation. You're an artist. You get to take artistic liberties and decide what would make yours look better. This is the reference photo is a guideline. Now, once you get that in there, like in yours, you've got all the detail, you've got all the hard stuff done. What can you do to make it even better? And that would be the thing. One of the things that I look for a lot are darkening. What darks can I make even darker? My lights even lighter, so that it does have more of a three-dimensional look. If we counted how many times I have said three-dimensional, it'd be a lot. Okay, next. We've got Jerry. Whoa, why are these coming up as a zip? Jerry, if you're watching, can you resend these to me not zipped? I'm not opening a zip file because I'm not. Oh, wait, here. Can I open? Move to inbox, move labels. I'm not figuring that out right now from an email, and I don't want to download something. So, whoa, oh, go back. I don't want to expose what it said. Anyway, yeah, if you want to resend those, or I'll figure it out for the Saturday one. I'm not going to figure it out right now. Okay, so we will go on to Joanna. My computer is deciding whether or not it wants to load. Okay, ooh, cool. So let's save these. And we've got our reference photo. Ew, chewed gum. It's way grosser when you look at the actual chewed gum. It didn't look gross in the artwork. Okay. And what am I looking for? Photoshop is what I'm working on. And let's get the art over here. Yes, I talk to myself like this even if I'm not talking to you guys. I do the same thing by myself. It's like a normal day for me. Okay. Oh man, the change in color. Holy crap, that is better. You improved on that piece so much from the reference photo. I guess I should actually show you guys. That is insane, the difference. Because the reference photo itself actually is, whoops, not that small. A little, chewed gum kind of makes you go, ooh. But man, you made it good. You made it like really, wow. Let's go to, nope, that's not enough. Trying to get it so you guys can see both the reference and the artwork here. Scooch. There we go. Okay. The color choice on this, that background up against the gum pack, and then you cut out the back end of the gum pack. You made it one short one. Oh, you improved on this photo. So here's an example. I really don't have anything remotely to add to this other than, oh, that's amazing. So let's talk about why there are such huge improvements over that reference photo. One, the overall balance. I think cutting off, you can see on the original, you've got where the background box, it kind of continues on. This one is cut off. Let's see. Actually, before I get too far, did she say anything specifically that I should pay attention to? Who was this one? This was Joanna. This is a 9x12 colored pencil, polychromos and luminance on pastel matte, along with my own reference photo. My goal was to get a better drawing and textures and lighting. I struggled with the foil wrapper on the gum as the lighting really messed with my brain, trying to figure out what colors it was reflecting. So any tips you can give me to make textures, like chewed gum and the foil, look like the actual texture they were made up with, that would be great. P.S. The reference photo was a mashup of 2 reference photos I took. I like the gum in the original one and the tinfoil in the other. Okay, so yeah, good call on it. That looks great. And so when you're trying to make something reflective, obviously with foil, it's going to reflect what's around it. But one of the ways that you get any kind of metal, foil, whatever, to look more metallic, just make your darks really dark and your lights really light. It is that easy. Copy your reference photo, look at your reference photo, where are the lights and where are the darks? But if you hype up your contrast a little bit, that's what really helps you to get more of a metallic look. But so going to, like I said, I don't have much for you because I think you really did a good job. I think your gum wrappers, the metal looks even better. I like the choice you made on, you said you had another photo for the gum box, which good choice there. Yours looks better. It looks like it's supposed to. So the only thing I would say, you may have a little bit too much purple coming into the foil that's on behind the bubble part of the gum. There's a lot. You've got the pinks, but you've got more purple than I would probably pull in. Because there's not a lot of purple for it that I'm seeing where it's reflecting from. So you typically want it to be the color, so gray, black, white, and then whatever is in there. So it might pick up some yellow, and then of course the blues you've got in the background, the pink from the gum. The purple's a little on the purpley side. I probably wouldn't make that choice when making it look metallic. I would go more with the pinks. And I can see the purple in yours, but yours has a different background from the reference. When I say yours, I mean the reference photo. There's a, oh, you resent that. Thanks, Jerry. I'll go look for that in a second. But yeah, that is really impressive. Your perspective, amazing. Your color choices. I mean, the purple's the only thing, and that's getting super nitpicky. The shading you did on that gum in hyping up the contrast, your darks you made a little bit darker. You made the pink more pink on the gum. I really like the choices you made on this. So I don't have a whole lot for you. It looks like chewed up gum, which is gross, but it looks like chewed up gum. I mean, gosh, this is such a strong piece. You should be very, very proud of this. I really don't have much more for you than that. I'm impressed. That's really well done. Wow. I think one of the things that I'm so impressed with too is that the changes that you have this reference photo, and you came through like an artist should and said, how can I make this better? What can I change to make this better? And you did it. That is good. Really well done. Okay. So I've got to pull this back down again because I don't want to flash anyone's email because I've got to move that to a different side. Hold on one second. Trying to like squeeze this over without, there we go. Okay, move this to critiques. Okay, I think I can now not flash somebody's personal email. Okay, and that was Jerry. Let's go back up to Jerry's. So we have our reference photo. We'll save that. Painting, save that. And I think another reference photo. I don't know. There's 2. I'm saving them. I haven't read the email yet. Okay. Justin said I was really just wondering how live this is. I mean, very live, I guess. I'm not answering questions like I typically do, just so that I can get through as many of these as possible. Like I said, if you are a patron and you missed the cutoff when I cut it off last night for this, I'm going to do another one this Saturday for you guys, just for you guys, because there was such a huge response of people who wanted these done. So we're going to take a bit of extra time for you guys with that. Let's go ahead now and pull these over for Saturday. So go ahead and submit again, or continue submitting, and I'll start a new thread so you guys will have that information if you can't find it. And where was another lion? This guy. Okay, so this is where you cropped it. No, wait. I think. Maybe I should just, I don't know, read the email. Let's start with that. Let's see. This was from, oh, this needs to refresh. Hold on. Tea. I mean, it's not tea, it's coffee. I went with the hard stuff tonight. Okay. Jerry said that this is a 30 by 40 in acrylic. That's big. Reference photo is my own. The lion has a neurological disorder, and I think his face was snarled a little weird in the reference, so I did my best to toss in some corrections digitally before painting. That actually explains why the one looked like, okay. I saw that reference photo, and I was like, that looks Photoshop. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. So this is the one that looks like it's photoshopped around the mouth. Oh, and the background. I'm picking up on things quickly. Oh, all over the place, huh? So let's pull you down so I can put everything next to each other. You are really big. Okay, so here's one of the first things that I would say. Oh, wait, hold on. Apparently, I'm not going to say anything because I can't multitask. Huh, who knew that was such an issue for me? And we've got this guy. Okay, so I see what you mean about that there's a potential he had a that his face was a bit snarled, like maybe up here a little too high. Thing is, if it were me, I probably would have done it anyway, as that says, or shows, because the Photoshop kind of cuts things out a little bit weird. The way the tooth is a bit too sharp now. The tooth before was, set back further. When you Photoshopped it, it came forward a bit more. And so I definitely don't think I would have made the Photoshop adjustments. His nose now, his whole muzzle looks too long. It's kind of like it's elongated this way. So that's definitely making things a bit harder for you. And here's the thing. When you're first learning to draw things accurately, copy the reference photo itself. I wouldn't spend, when you're starting out, I wouldn't try to make too many adjustments unless you painted and drawn, 50 lions and you're just an expert at this is how a lion's head is shaped. I probably, when you're learning, would not try to change from the reference photo too much. I would pick a reference photo that is exactly how I want it to look, and that is how I would just go with that. Because I think you made things harder for yourself. 30 by 40, you said 30 by 40 inches, that is huge. So if you're gonna go that big, if I'm gonna paint a study that close up of the face, I'm going to it's gonna look like hyper realistic. And I don't enjoy painting that much detail, so I'm not gonna do that. But so that's, up to you if that's the type of detail you wanna look at. But when you paint super big with a more loose brush style, you definitely, I like how you said over here, I like to be difficult. You were being difficult for me. I think you made everything harder for yourself here. You made so much extra work for yourself. So I would first say, when you are learning a subject that you're not super familiar with, go with that reference photo much more closely than what you did. I think Photoshopping at first really made it a lot harder for you than it needed to be. So it was harder to get things accurate because it's not drawn accurately anyway. And I think even when I look at the one you Photoshopped, it's closer to that. But because the Photoshop job was technically wrong, that's not how a lion's face would really look. And I totally get why you made the choices you did, like what you were seeing. But they were also wrong. They definitely, Now his face is like too skinny and long, almost more like a dog than the more squished face that a lion should have. So that would be my first tip, is just go with your reference photo while you're getting the hang of that, because the drawing itself, I mean, spend more time on the drawing too. Make sure your drawing is really accurate before you start painting, and that is hard to do when it's big. So one of the things I like to do, I don't know that you're at that stage yet, but I like to use if I'm going to do something really big, and let's say I want to freehand it, I don't want to trace anything, I just want to freehand it. I'm going to freehand it small. I'm going to use a projector and project that onto the canvas. I would not try to freehand something this large onto the canvas, because you have to back away so far to see if you've got things in perspective. It's, very physical. I'm lazy. I'm not going to do that. So one of the things, if you like to paint really large and even if you want to freehand it, you could trace it, obviously, just project the image onto that and get it accurate. I would rather see someone who's learning trace and do it correctly, very accurately first, then do things incorrectly over and over again, because you're not really teaching yourself to see things as they are. If you trace things, you're seeing what it really looks like, and it kind of helps your brain to start noticing details. So that's the reason I've seen, going back, let's explain that. I know I explained it earlier, but we'll come back through this. I do not, my goal for a student is not to forever be dependent on tracing. I want you guys to be able to freehand things, but tracing and teaching your brain to see things accurately, doing it accurately, that can help you learn to do it freehand accurately so much faster, so much faster than if you freehand it. Let's say you freehanded it and you drew it incorrectly, and then you freehanded it again, still incorrect, freehanded again. So often the student keeps making the same mistake again and again and again. What if instead you traced it 5 times, 10 times, 12 times, whatever, and then freehanded it? By then, you taught your brain to see things that you weren't noticing before. And so your freehanding is now stronger when you're working from a reference photo like that. It's just, it has been one of the things that I saw students improve faster and get more accurate more quickly, more than any other method I've used with them, whether it be graphs or just, eyeballing things, checking measurements against itself. Those all really, it really helps. So anyway, going back to, you are welcome to trace, you are welcome to freehand, you are welcome to do it however you want, but I would draw it smaller and then use a projector. You can get the tracer, I want to say it's I don't know how much it is, $70, $80, $90. You usually see it, but you can use a 40% coupon if you go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's. It's not a great projector, but it's a start. And it's not necessarily going to be super, super accurate, but it would be more accurate than freehanding on a large canvas for most people. So that may be really good. And that's what I would do. I would draw things like a dolphin if I wanted it to be, because that's what when I started, I was doing wildlife or marine life. I would draw the dolphin on a piece of paper, and I may have thrown them away, but I used to have papers where I had sketched out in graphite the outline of a dolphin on little, an 8x10 paper, but I'd have a whole bunch of little ones, and I would just move that around on the projector, and the projector would project that. It was a super cheap projector. It's not the one that I use now is digital. It's much nicer, but those little ones really can help. The one that I use now is the Artograph. I don't think they make it anymore. I think LG technically was the person who made it, but they rebranded that LG one for artists. It's a great projector, but it was $700. It was expensive. You could get stuff for so much cheaper now. So any digital projector should work fine for you, that you can put, make sure you can put the image onto an SD card and then project that onto your onto the wall, whatever. There will be some skewing with the projector, trying to get it exactly even. It may be too big on the top, too little, but it's usually minor enough that it's not a big deal. But, you're going to have less skewing than freehanding it incorrectly in the first place, where you're having bigger issues with perspective. So that, I think, is really, 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 really helpful. Start with that accurate drawing. The next thing would be for just creating fur. You said you're going for a painterly but still realistic style, so which I like, but you're missing things like here up at the corner that's right kind of this area before his ear. Those are tufts of fur. Get those clumps in there, so you can go with a painterly style. Actually, let's pull this up. This one I went with a little bit more of a a lot more of a painterly style. Let me find this really quick. I had him up earlier. So you can do a painterly style, but still, here we go, get those clumps of fur. You don't have to put tons of detail. I mean, obviously I'm not sitting in there painting every little thing of fur, but you can still get those clumps of fur that you can see around his, now his isn't as long as the lion, but look at the clumps and clusters of fur in there. You can still have a painterly look, but still have the fur texture look correct, if that makes sense. So like up here, you've changed that to where it's almost like it's short hair versus the clumps. Get those clumps. Those clumps are a big deal. Now here, down, when you move down lower, you are more accurate, but your brush strokes are a little too long. And so you're almost creating like horsehair where you've got that long flow. On a lion, it's not so much that it's long, it's that it's thick and there's a lot of it. So it's like a whole bunch of, you know, yay length, not horsehair length. So shorter brush strokes, I would say, as you get, we'll pull this guy over here. As you get down to this section, come on, handy arrow, get up here. This section in here, really like the texture you created. That's really good, but it's almost too long. Like clumps and clusters a little bit shorter. Like if we pull this same thing here, it's easy to look at, hold on, here we go. It's easy to look at this as one piece. It's not. Here's a piece, one separate thing, and then down here, two separate clumps. And so that's what you want to look at. We have a tendency when we look at lines, we're like, it's this long flowing mane. No, it's not. It's a big poof ball. The individual hairs are not that long. They're shorter clumps. So try to create that a little bit more. I really like the way that you created that textured look. That's actually probably my favorite part of this painting is the way that you've done this. But this up in here is like this short, it almost looks like it's hair from another animal versus down here. So I would work on that, get those clumps, because you can see, look at it here, clumps, all those clumps. We want to get those clumps and clusters in there for sure. I like you, and it's the thing that I know I'm criticizing this one a lot, but it's because I can see you're going to be good at this. Keep up with it. These are just the things that when you're first starting out, that you've got to learn to start paying attention for. So this is such a good example of someone I can see, you're going to go far with this, but you have to keep with it. That's the big thing. Don't give up, but you have to keep with it. But I can see, like, I mean, the way that you painted the mane down here, this is great. I love the texture you created. I like that you've got this grayish, almost cool gray look under the fur. And then it's wonderful. Absolutely gorgeous. The mouth, because of the way that you photoshopped the mouth in this one, you kind of blacked out and lost the detail. You don't want to do that. Look at the detail in here. Look at the lights and the darks. Yours looks incomplete because he's missing that. And the fur here, clumps. You've got long, skinny lines. You want to get those clumps and clusters in there. Also start looking at the shadow. So like here, look at the shadow, how it's not white, by the way. The chin, there's no white anywhere on him. I would not use straight titanium white anywhere. Where I'm good on hyping up contrast, but white is not white. In him, this isn't white anyway. It's kind of it's a light buff color, but still the buff color. So look at those shadows. Look at all these little guys in here. Slow down. And if you're working 30 by 40 inches, you've got plenty of room to do this. It'll take you forever. I mean, welcome to your next 2 years, but you can do this. You can get that kind of detail in there. That's the thing. If you're going to paint that big, you've got the room to get the detail in, and it's okay to still do the painterly look like you said you're going for, but get that in there. Where are your lights? Where are your darks? Going for a painterly look doesn't mean that you're going to skip your lights and darks. That contrast is even more important for you than someone going with super, super strong like photorealism. So get those in there. Look at and I can see you're starting to shade. You're doing good. You'll be good with this, but keep it up. And then a couple areas, just watch that it's a little too harsh here, like along here almost looks like a separate fold because this line being as harsh as it is. Soften that up a little bit. These are just the details you're going to look for. Again, start with an accurate drawing. I would not Photoshop to change the photo until you've painted lots and lots of lines and okay, this looks right if I adjust this. So I hope that helps, but you are going to do great. You're off to a good start. I would probably say start smaller so it's a little bit less overwhelming. 30 by 40 is huge. That is so big. I don't even like working that big, but I know some people do. But yeah, this is definitely my favorite part though. Man, this looks pretty short in it, but they look like it's almost looks like people hair, horsehair, people hair, but long. But the way that you've created that, the way that you shaded that, really nice. Okay, next. I'm really glad you submitted that though. There are so many good things to learn from. I love it. So and for anybody watching too, one of the best things that you can do if you are looking to improve your work, make more mistakes. Do more things that you end up realizing, don't like that. I'm going to change that later on. I'll do it different next time. You will learn. People get super worked up and they're so afraid to make a mistake that they don't try, that they don't experiment. If you don't try, if you don't experiment, if you're unwilling to do something incorrectly to learn from it, you're not going to learn. You're not going to move forward. So this is wonderful. Good job, Jerry. Okay, next we did that one. We have Angela. I guess I should download it first. I like the download section because it's like coffee break time. And those are embedded, so let me move this over so I don't share everybody. Or share your, let's see, save image as. Don't want to give everybody your email list. Sure, you don't. Well, I doubt anyone's going to look on here and start emailing people, but just in case there's some weirdos out there. Okay, let's too many windows open. Since we moved, it's worse than normal. My schedule kind of got pushed back, and so I've been waking up way earlier, and I want to go to bed. Like, I seriously want to go to bed for the night, like an hour ago. So that's why I am struggling worse than normal to function. I was energetic earlier. Let's see. Critiques. Did I just download it? It was a portrait. Okay, so we need you and you. And let's see what the artist has to say about these. Okay, Angela said, this drawing was done a couple of years ago as a gift for my mother from a photo of my father from the late 70s. I've included the reference photo as well. My goal was photorealism, trying to pay attention to the shading. This was my first portrait ever. Wow. Seriously? Impressive. This was my first portrait ever. It was done. I wish you could see my first portrait ever because it was terrifying. This is impressive. Like, you're going to be good at portraits if you're starting here. This was my first portrait. It was done freehand, and the original was a small photograph. I'm considering a second rendering of this to see my improvements since then and would love your feedback on how to make it better. I now have better tools at my disposal, like a projector, light table, better quality pencils. Just got the Derwent water-soluble graphite. Those are fun. Tracing and transfer paper, as well as better quality paper to do the drawing on. Cool. Okay, so this is from Angela. And let's see. That is really close. You freehanded that? Like, you are going to do really good. Okay, so a few things. You've got that projector and the all of those, use them. And even if you're finishing, let's say you use them, correct your drawing a few times, do it over and over again so you kind of get the hang of the way that the perspective, because you adjusted the perspective a little bit with the eye. He's actually looking in a different direction now, and his eye is like too far towards his hairline. So trace it a few times and you're going to notice that. And then you can freehand it. If you like the idea, like anybody who is like, but I want to freehand stuff. And I don't know if that's your case, but even if you want to freehand stuff, trace it a few times and then freehand it. You'll notice things you never noticed before. It's like practice. I mean, think when we were kids, what did we start with? We traced the letters to learn how to do them properly, to really notice those details before we started on our own. If I'm playing violin, you learn an instrument. You are going to copy somebody else's composure. You're going to do it correct, learn from that before you go off and start composing your own. So I think that can really help. Maybe that's not the best example because there are a few things off. The nose is off, the eye isn't quite right. You are so close though. If you look at the perspective of the glasses, you almost turned his head angled at just a little bit more at the viewer instead of the full profile. So that's definitely, watch for that. Now, when you get into the hair, you're not going to put a ton of detail. The detail just isn't in the photo. It's not there for you to see. But, and there are things like, especially when they're lined up like this, you can see the hat needs to be a bit taller, there's little things. But what I want you to look at when you do this again, and please share, I would love to see your next one, because this, if you already started off this good, wow. Okay. Look at the clumps. Look at right here. Dark, light. Don't try to do the individual strands. And he doesn't look like he has the type of beard that's super, super straight. And that's what you've created, that super straight look. And especially in the 70s, everyone's a poof ball. Hair was big, wide. So he's got that more, like his natural, it looks like beard was probably a lot more dense, a little bit more curly. It actually looks a lot like how my husband's is, so that dense. So what you're going to focus on, where are your lights, where are your darks. And I wouldn't, if I've got a small photo and I can't see a lot of detail, I typically am going to want to do that in a smaller piece. Like I would probably not do this over an 8x10. I wouldn't go too much bigger because I just can't see the detail. Some artists can do it and are great at it. I'm not one of those. If I can't see the detail, I mean, I can improve to an extent, but only so much. So watch where are your darks, where are your lights. Those are what you're going to look for. And then when you come to the hair, look at the clump. So he's got layers. He's got that nice feathery 70s look going on there. So you want to get that, look at the clump. You've got some of it. You're seeing it, but look a little bit more and don't try, I would say, in something like this, I wouldn't try to make details or try to, like here, you've straightened out his hair, but you're trying to create what you can't see. Don't do that in this case, and especially when you're just learning, draw what you see. Where are your lights, where are your darks? Look at the shapes. Draw upside down. So if you're struggling, you said it was making you crazy with the angles. Yeah, if you are struggling with those, oh my gosh, that's the thing that's driving me crazy. I need tape. I don't think I have any in here right now. But if you're struggling with the angles, if you're struggling with the shapes, if you're like these things that you've got on here are minor. Watch what happens when you flip it over. Everything is going to stand out to you. So let's go. This isn't what I want. I'm not paying attention to what I want to do. What do I want? 180, flip canvas, vertical. That's what I want. Same thing. Image, rotation, vertical. Okay. All of a sudden, now you're seeing shapes. You're not seeing a face. You're seeing the shapes that are there. So it's easier to see like, okay, there's a whole section here. Come here. Get up there. Look at this. That whole section needs to be way lighter. Look at the shape of the nose. Completely different. You know, the angle of the face is different. You can see so many things that you didn't see before. It should be more obvious that the hat can be longer, or, you know, the main top part can be elongated there. This area is too big, too much space. Look at how you notice shapes. This is what you're looking at, whatever your subject is. People, animals, plants, flowers, whatever. You look at the shapes and copy what you see there. Whether you're working from life, if you're working from a photo, you're trying to teach your brain to copy the shapes that are there. And when it's upside down, like even me, when I first looked at it, I didn't notice that this was not the same size, or that like here, the distance between here and here, shrink that on down. Again, following the clumps and clustering. You did that here, the lights and darks. And of course, make your reference photo black and white too. That's going to make it easier for you to judge your values. Now, in a case like this where it's kind of fuzzy, it's kind of hard to see what it is, I will usually have one copy in black and white and one copy in color, because sometimes when you go in black and white, everything's so fuzzy you really can't see anything anymore. But let's go. So this is how I would do most of it. Now I'm like, wait, glasses, eye, what's what? That's when I switch over to the color. So there are times when I do work from color. Even if I'm rendering it in black and white, I still want to have both available to look at, because it's definitely hard to see sometimes when it is in black and white, when it's a fuzzier photo like this. Man, I can't believe this is your first though. You are going to be great at this. Ears, spend a little longer on ears for sure. That is, and you can see here where the shadow, the highlight, all that. That's one of the areas that a lot of us like to skip, myself included. God, I hate drawing ears, especially in certain breeds of dogs, of like where it's rosed. It's so cute. I love that ear look. Of course, that's the breed of dog I have, but there's so much busyness inside to get the fold right and all. It's a lot. But if you skip out, and a lot of artists will skip out on that. I see people who do Italian Greyhound work, and it's like they just kind of make it a hollow hole, and it's like, well, even though the rest of the piece is awesome, that ear is just drawing my attention of that isn't the best. So spend a little bit more time on the ear. And again, watch your values. His neck is way too bright. You want the lighter area of his face. Look at here. Ooh, that's too big. Look at here, that light. Make sure yours is really light there. It's also not going, and see how you can see the angle, like just where the beard needs to go more vertical, where yours is coming at an angle there. You're going to notice so much more. But anyway, the light, and then you've got dark here, and then the neck is darker than everything. These are the things you want to look at with your reference photo and your artwork, and just kind of judge there. So yeah, that is impressive. Great. I cannot believe that's your first portrait. Mine did not look like that. Okay. Angela said that ear made me nuts. Ears always will too. Ears are just a pain. So yeah, just watch your lights and darks. That will make it easier for you. Okay, so next we have Cecilia. Coffee break. Okay, at a quick glance, I'm really not sure which one of those was the reference and which was the artwork, so we're off to a good start. That's, if you're going for realism, which I'm guessing so, nice. Okay, I can tell that's a painting. When I looked really quickly, I couldn't tell so easily, so nice. Okay, let's see what, I'll shrink these down a bit and then see what she has to say about them, or it. Okie dokie. There. Oops, I lost the chat. Yeah, and thank you every single person who has submitted. Thank you guys. These are always, they're fun to do. I enjoy these. And you're brave, because I know it's scary to have your work judged. So this is from Cecilia, who said, let's see, The Eye of the Beholder is the title, 11 by 14 acrylic on stretched canvas, reference photo provided by David Kriegler. By permission, my objective was realism. And okay. And did it say 11 by 14? Okay. So first thing that jumps out to me is that you, gosh, some of this though you improved on a lot too. It's so funny. So couple things, actually, let's go to this. Things that I noticed first off. One, the orangey colors, the orange and yellows. And while I say color's not that big of a deal, I would hype up that contrast. I would pull that in there. That orange above the eye on the reference, I think looks awesome. You've got those warmer tones in the eye. Your eye is just straight black and whites. If you pull in some of those, that orange, I think that would look amazing. It gives it a little, it's just a nice look. But the contrast, one of the things here, you've got where the water is. Soften this up. Actually, I don't really need to do it on there, but let's use the arrow. Give me your arrow. Get up there. So if you look at this area in here, you've got on your reference photo, because you took the time to put so much detail, let's just get super nitpicky. Congratulations. Here, this fades from almost white. I mean, it is bright, which you've pretty much got. Why are you snapping? Do not snap. No snapping. To up to almost a bluish gray. Look at the blue. Get that blue in there. That blue with the orange of the eye is part of what makes that reference photo so striking. If you can pull those in together, because you're dealing at that point with complementary colors, it just really draws the viewer in, I think. And you can get a lot of the darks darker, like in here, go darker and also a little bit softer where that water, that shine mark is. Get that a little, blend it a little bit more, that nice soft look, but get the whites a little bit lighter and then fade up into the darks more. Right now it's just kind of gray and white, so you're missing, I think, some of the color saturation that could really make it even, a little bit punchier, like where you really are like, woo. And obviously it's good. When I grabbed them real quick before I looked closely, I was like, they both look like photos to me. So you did a great job. Don't get me wrong there. But I like in here, yours, I really like how you can see these greens that you mixed in. That's really nice. But even at the same time, what if you pulled the darks even darker? Just, if you make your darks a little bit darker, your brights are going to appear that much brighter. And contrast being such a big deal, that's a good thing. Then, of course, back in here, we can darken a lot of these over. And you put more detail than what the reference has. They're more defined and they're smaller in here. Look at your reference photo. These are bigger in that area. So you actually made a bit more work for yourself. You made like bigger, I want to say tiles, obviously not tile scales. If you make them a bit bigger, it would have actually gone a bit faster. It looks beautiful, but it's also not, if you're going, I think you said your goal was realism. Well, I mean, it is still realism either way. Yours is more detail. See, I don't want to say that it's better or worse without more detail. It's just not as accurate. We'll go that way. I don't think the average viewer is going to see this and know a difference, but you definitely made a little bit more work for yourself there. But here, and you're working in acrylics, just glaze that orange. Just tint the orange over this area and back into here, and then you've got your highlights, and then darken up, just, you know, hype up that contrast. That would really be my main, I don't need this on there anymore. My main tip there. And then in the eye, you can see a little bit of that hint of the blue, that bluish gray in the sky. You can see the hints of orange in the sky, along with the, you know, where it curves around with the trees. I would include that color in there a little bit more, but hyping up the color saturation, I think, would be the biggest change I would make on him. This is really nicely done. Man, you put a lot of work into that. Really good. But yeah, that would be my tip there. Color saturation. Your details are good. Your blending's pretty good. You've changed where, like here too, you added scales where they don't belong in the corner of the eye. So you might want to watch the details a little bit, unless you're going for a more fantasy type feel. So like, let's say your goal was to create a dragon. I'm going to find different reptiles that I can use for the reference, but I obviously don't need them to be exact. They're just a guideline to get a general feel for that. And in which case, I might want more scales in an area that shouldn't be scales, or, you know, smaller scales instead of the bigger shaped ones if it was accurate. But on the flip side, let's say you're trying to draw this specific, I don't even know what critter this is, but let's say you wanted it to be exact. If he's whatever reptile he is, if you were looking to sell it to somebody who was interested in that type of, let's say you did a sea turtle and you wanted to sell it to somebody who was really into sea turtles. Chances are, if you added extra scales, if you added different things, that buyer is going to be, that's a little off. That's not quite accurate. So in that case, you want it to be more accurate. But if you're going more for something that's just kind of a fantasy thing, and you're just going for a guideline, then you can get away with adding different scales and changing the shape. So it would just depend on what your goals are there. But either way, I would definitely play up the oranges and get that difference in contrast, because look how much lighter the values are under the eye versus the orangey brown tones like burnt sienna would work. I say orange, but I probably wouldn't use actual orange. I would probably use like burnt sienna or red oxide with maybe a little yellow mixed in it. That would work. But that I would do so that you get that better contrast, so it's not as flat. Because what's happening right now on yours almost looks flat. There's not enough variation of the value. So if you adjust that, that'd make all the difference in the world. Like, good work there. Okay. Next we have a puppy. Oh, you painted this tiny. Wow. From what I can tell, good job. Let's see. Nope. And where was the other one? You and... I'm really falling asleep. Oh my gosh, that coffee is not doing enough for me. Hi, I'm Lisa. I like to complain a lot. Okay. So, main thing I see here, I think you did a good job getting the texture of, it looks like that wiry coat. The main thing, the eyes are good, and the drawing is very accurate, so you're good there. I would just say the whites are too white, and the reference photo, it's a cell phone photo. It's not an amazing lighting or anything like that. But still, for you, I would go ahead and darken up a little bit under the neck, and that way the white of his beard would show. You could pull that over it. What's happening right now is... what am I looking for? Being awake would be amazing. How can I make that happen? Let's just go with grays. We don't even need to go too crazy with color or whatever. You're in my way. Can you not be in my way? There we go. Okay, so let's get some grays in here. I don't want to go too dark. So if I darken, oh, that has no opacity. More would be better. Okay, we darken this up. And obviously it's too soft, I'm not getting the same texture. But if I can darken that up and then come through with some of the whites, which I probably would still not go that white, but watch the difference. When I can pull these whites, that is not the right, what brush am I using? Huh. That looks terrible. Okay. Huh. There we go. Okay, what's that? But if I do that, now I can pull his beard over the darks. And I can start getting those clumps to give him more of that wiry feel. Or, you know, but I have to make the fur of his neck darker, and this is a terrible example, by the way. You know, do it right, not the half-done version I'm currently doing. But if you can do that, let's pull, whoa, what did you just do? That is not what you meant to do. Oh, because I'm hitting wrong buttons. That actually makes more sense now. But you can build up to that so that that wiry hair shows up. Because right now you're dealing with a photo where the neck and the face and all of that is blending together, but you're missing the cute wiriness of the floof, his chin floof you don't have. So you can get that in there. And this is a horrible example. I am not doing things well tonight at all, but you get the idea. Get the neck a little bit darker so that the floof on the face, that beard, can overlap it and stand out a bit more. But this is painting on wood. I don't know if you guys have ever done it. It's not easy. That is who, did I even say who the artist was on this one? Come on. I swiped down low. Where are you? This is Jacqueline. She said, I'm working on a bunch of small pet portraits. 2.5 inches. Tiny, man. I'm guessing this is acrylic. Does it say that there? It probably does. Yeah, they're acrylics on wood slices. So one of the things you might want to do if you're not already doing this, when you paint on wood, depending on if that wood was treated with anything, that can cause issues. But even more so, the wood, and you may already be doing this, but the wood, it's even harder because the paint wants to soak into it. If you add water for glazing or whatever, and I'm sure you found this, the paint is soaking into it. Use, if you guys are any of you are painting on wood like this, use a clear gesso first. So you can still see your wood grain, which obviously you want in something like this. But if you put that clear gesso, that's what soaks into the wood. And then your paint can just set on top. All nice. You can even sand the top if you want it a little smoother. But that can make it a lot easier for you too if you are going to paint on wood like this. Clear gesso. And then go ahead and paint with your regular acrylics. This is really cute though. I like that you've really, especially for being so small, you've really captured the direction of the fur. You've got all of that, but I would say the white, it's too much white. So actually let's pull this back out without my adjustments. I'm not getting this undone. There's too many on there. Let's just close you and pull a new one up. Go away. Nope, don't save. Where was he? There we go. So you can see here, like there's so much white, and you started to get the gray. Actually, I think it looks like you started to do the collar there, but it's kind of peeked behind all that fur. But if you can darken up the chest a little bit, just a little, I mean, it doesn't have to be like super strong difference in color there, but if you darken that up a bit, you can get his beard to really, or her beard to really come out over the slightly darker, more shaded neck. When you're working from a photo like this, it is such a challenge because you can't really see where it should be light or dark. So that would be my main thing there. But I think you did a great job of capturing the likeness of this guy. But yeah, not so bright with the whites so that you can have highlights, because when everything's already white, you can't put highlights. There's nowhere to put highlights to kind of control where the viewer is looking, because it's all highlight. So get that a little bit darker, a little bit more of a muted tone. I'm not saying go black, but darken it up a little bit so that the white highlights will show up, and then that clear gesso will make it a lot easier too if you're not already doing that. That's just a general tip when painting on wood. Okay. Really cute though. I bet the people who are getting that are going to love it. Okay, what is next? From Rebecca. Whoa. That is, and again, contrast. Why do I say whoa? What is my first reaction? Accurate and contrast. That's actually a really nice composition. Wow. Okay, and then I think we've got our, oh, that's not the right one. That's a really pretty photo. Okay. Thanks, Linda. And I apologize if I've been ignoring questions and such, if anybody's been talking to me. I'd say I didn't mean to ignore you, but I actually do in this case, because I'm not doing the questions tonight just so that I can get through as much of these as possible. So I apologize for that. Let's see. Now we have the Whoa Bird. Because that was my reaction to him. Where did he go? Come on, Whoa Bird. You and you. Shrink these guys down a bit so we can look at them side by side. That is a strong photo. That's beautiful. And the artwork on the white, that actually works out real well too. Okay, and then let's actually read the email. This is Rebecca. She said she's going for photorealism. He used polychromos pencils on Arch's hot press watercolor paper. Picture from Pixabay. And everyone ran to get that picture from Pixabay after that. So the only thing that I would probably do differently, I think, so he is striking, obviously. Look at his neck and his body in the photo. Look at the difference in contrast. Come here, Arrow. Get up there. Here, look how dark that is compared to here. I would play that up more. Your face, you've got I would probably darken up the darks a little bit, but I really like that you pulled the purples in there, the blues you chose, really nice, but I would play this up, this area here a bit more, so that you separate the neck from the body a little bit more. The other thing is on the feathers, when we look at the reference photo, your feathers are a little bit going every which direction. If we really look at the reference photo, I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. And obviously I'm getting nitpicky here. It's beautiful. I've been doing this, getting nitpicky on you guys all night, so I guess you're used to that. So if we look at the feathers, look, they're very defined in how they clump, how they cluster, which direction they go. So like yours right here. Come here. You see all of these? You've added, and now it's okay to add a little bit of extra, but yours is a little bit, he's a bit floofier than what the bird really looks like. Like it's extra windy that day. But see in here, look at this here. You've started it. You've got the start of it. But over, come here, arrow. I need another arrow. Ooh, that's too big. I need a smaller arrow. And I don't need the ruler. Oh, hit the right button. There we go. So here, look at these clumps. And it's kind of defined better. So if you're going for realism, you're trying to make it look more realistic, slow down a little bit and get those a little bit more exact. Now here, that's pretty messy there. So I think you did, that looks really accurate as far as that goes. Here though, these are a little bit more defined where the shadows are. Just, I would slow down a little bit more. Like you're creating the texture. It works this way too. But if you wanted it to be more accurate, I would spend a bit more time on defining those edges a little bit more. And then as we get into here, look at how white this is. And you've got it white, but in order for that to seem bright enough, you can't go brighter than the white of the paper. To make that look brighter, you've got to darken what's next to it. So just it's a common problem. How do I make my brights brighter? Darken what's next to it. And many times if your brights are as bright as the paper, you're not going brighter. Darken what's next to it and your brights will appear brighter. And that would be the case, I would say, a little bit here, a little, not too much here. And the feathers are actually pretty good. You did a good job going the right direction there. Good. About the right length. Good. These are just a bit messier. I think you could be a little bit cleaner with that. What size is this? I don't think it says. Because if it's small, there is a possibility that this is smaller. If this is small, it can be, this detail is fine. If I'm working larger, then I'm going to be more exact on those individual feathers. I'm going to take a bit more time and really try to get those more like the reference photo. But if this is a smaller piece, I would probably do just what you did there and just adjust, make this area here a bit darker so that these areas will appear brighter. And that's going to make the neck, make the whole body appear more three-dimensional, because right now he's a little bit flat right in that area. Love the detail on the head. I love the detail you got in there. I love the blues that you pulled in. I think that's beautiful. You use more teal blues, like a more of a greenish blue, whereas the reference photo, if you care, some people do. I don't. The green works, or the greenish blue works for me. But this one has more of a bluish gray, blue tones, purpley tones. So it's like kind of closer to purple on the color wheel, where yours is more close. You know, it's still in the blue range, but yours swings closer to green. So that would be a difference there if you're, like I said, not a big deal. I do like that the bird has more of the, on the reference photo, you've got more oranges in here. I think that makes the purples pop a lot. I would probably adjust that. But no, this is really nice. And you do have good contrast, but the main contrast issue I have as far as things to adjust is this all kind of is the same. There's not a huge variation here. And in order to make this whiter, you want to darken up what's next to it. And especially the body will make a big difference. But this is beautiful. Okay. Joseph says, I wonder if it's an African woe chicken. Can it carry a coconut? Okay. Wasn't that a Monty Python thing? Not the woe chicken part. That's me making up chicken names. Okay. Like the hyacinth macaw I just finished that painting of. That's an eat your wall chicken. I know. I've lived with macaws before. My parents used to breed them. Let's see. This one is embedded, so I've got to shrink this down so we don't give away Linda's email. Oh, wait. There's no image. Is there nothing, Linda? Linda, I don't have an... Oh, wait. It came on a different one. Okay. So this, when we get to it, is going to be an 11 by 14 watercolor board. My version of your painting started it months ago. Have tweaked it a dozen times. Just can't seem to get it there. Oh, now I'm even more interested. A version of my painting. What do we have? Are there two? Nope, just one. Well, I guess if it's a version of mine, I should know what the reference looks like, huh? It'd be great if I could hit the right buttons. That would be amazing. I mean, it's not going to happen, but it would be amazing. And where did that go? Oh, it is a version of my painting. Look at that. Okay, can we get the version over here? So let's start by cropping it. When you post your images online, ideally, unless you're doing a staged scene where you really want it to, you want to show off your paint, your brushes, you're doing something like that, great. Otherwise, we want to crop that. So let's go ahead and start there so we can focus on the artwork a bit more. Look at all that coral. Good job on the shading. I'm guessing this is acrylics. Yeah, acrylic on an 11 by 14 color or watercolor board, which I love because watercolor boards, oh, this is actually big. We can zoom in a lot. Watercolor boards, if you are working in acrylics, man, are they smooth. I love working on those. So, okay, so tips on this one. Man, I love your coral, especially the coral, the sponges over here off to the left. Really like that, how that looks. That's great. Everything I would say, I like this. Where's my arrow? Come back, arrow. Arrow. There we go. Get in there. Okay. So I like how soft a lot of this is. I like that everything's not super, super harsh. So this is going to be closest to the viewer. That is harsher. That's nice. This I would probably change to water. I don't think I would pull this coral all the way up to the surface. It's a bit like it pulls attention too much and then it just stops. So this has a little bit of a weirdness to it. I would probably just crop it, just kind of the corner. So you've got a nice flow or at just the bottom here and not all the way up. So that would be one thing that I would change, but I really like the softness in this area. Now your water, there's not a definite where the water starts and ends. So you've got your waves in here. And I think these are waves on the surface. So here, this line here, This, I believe, is where the underwater section is. What I like to do is make the underwater section, it should always be lighter up at the surface and get darker as it moves down. And that's going to help you to create the depth of the water and also separate your water line. It's an easy way to separate the water line. Now, your water line doesn't have to be super harsh. It can kind of fade with little marks as it moves down. But here, I'm having a really hard, like it almost makes the perspective seem a little bit different. So what I would do is, let's see. Yeah, everyone loves it. This is really nice. I am with you guys on that. See, you're going to get me being more picky with marine stuff because that's like that was what I started with. So I'm instantly like, okay, picky mode. So, but this is gorgeous. So I should have started with that. Sorry, I jumped in too fast. But this line here where our water line is, you want the background water to be a bit lighter right at that edge and then just fade down to darker as you move down. It doesn't have to be as strong as what I do. You don't have to go that high contrast, but more than what you have here, so we can just see which is above, which is under. But then again, this has a flow some people may really like. The main thing that stands out that I would change is the coral here, which I know took you a long time. It's shaded beautifully, but it's the way it just comes up and then stops at your water line, but it doesn't look like a water line because is this the water line or the teal? You want to just kind of make that a little bit more clear. You've got the nice little rays of light coming down, your bubbles. I like that you've got the variation in the dolphins positions. That's great. Really like how you did your wave, that you've got the light, it fades down to dark. You just want to take that light fades down to dark and do it down here. I like too that your water, so you've got the teals and the greens up here, and then you switch to more the purple tinted blues, like ultramarine type, as you get down. Actually, it's probably just primary or phthalo mixed with black and white, but I like that shift there. I would keep that same shift. I really like it. I would just lighten up right at that water line so that it fades. That's going to give you a lot more depth. That's really nice. The sky is kind of off in the distance enough that the wave stands out. You've got good contrast there. I'm really liking that. Yeah, you're doing good. So I think you said you just can't, what was that? You said you've tried this version, started it months ago, retweaked it a dozen times, just can't seem to get it there. Something is always off. So here's what I would do. If you're going to change anything, I would just change, make this background water. But it's going to be noticeable that you did. Maybe just, I don't know, push it back somehow, make it darker. But what I would rather see you do, and I think what would make it easier, start over. I know that's not what you want to hear. Start over, because this, where I'm talking about making this lighter and fade down, it's going to look weird if you do this at this stage. That should be done before you get to the dolphins, before you get to the corals. But then when you get down here, I love the softness. I like that it's not super harsh. And your dolphins, the great thing is if you lighten up your background up here a little bit, so it fades down, the dolphins are going to stand out that much more. I would adjust the coral so you're not going all the way up there, because it's like up and then it just cuts off. So it's making me like want to leave the canvas, right? It's kind of a weird blocky thing, but the way that you've done your water is gorgeous there. You may want to switch to a smaller brush. So you know how you're sponging on your paint to get your waves there? You might want to switch to a slightly smaller brush when you get these waves that are up closer where they're kind of smaller. That would probably help a bit, but this is gorgeous. It is very, very pretty. I really like this version, and the thing that my favorite thing about this is you're fading from the greenish blues down to the purplish blues, where you shifted on the color wheel closer to purple. I really like that transition. Definitely keep that in if you paint it again. But great work. So we are at 10:07. God, I'm not even halfway through the submissions. So like I said, for patrons, we will pick this up on Saturday at 12:30. Or did I say 12? I don't know. I've been getting up earlier. I'll see I have to look at what I wrote down. But I'll give you guys the link. It'll be over there. For those of you who are not on Patreon, but you do want to submit for critiques, we will have more of these, but the next batch is going to be over at our MeWe group. We're going to, and anyone can, it's free to make an account at MeWe. It's like Facebook, but better. Links in the description. I'm really hoping MeWe takes off because they're super big on privacy. I am not sponsored or anything like that. I'm just really liking their platform. And you can change your settings to where you just see every post. Like if one of my friends posts, I see it. It's there. I just get to see all the posts instead of Facebook deciding what they want me to see. So I'm not missing out on posts when I do take the time to actually spend time looking through social media. But anyway, it will be over at MeWe. Link to our group is in the description. You are welcome to join, and it won't be until I post when we're ready for critiques. But as always, in our art group, if you're looking for advice on your art, you can post in either our Facebook or our MeWe groups. And I'm saying that right. I always say we, me. It's me, we. I get it backwards because I have Wemo light switches that don't work. Don't buy them. They work for a couple years and then they die. But anyway, you can post and ask other artists for tips. Make sure if you are critiquing somebody else's work in our groups, it is only allowed if they specifically ask for advice. If someone's just like, look at this awesome painting I made, don't give them a critique. They didn't ask for it. But if you guys are always welcome to ask for critiques. Make sure if you do give critiques, keep it positive. No reason to be a jerk about anything. I've seen people there was a post earlier in another group and it was like political figure. People were just so rude to the artist and it was crazy. We don't want to do any of that. So again, you guys are more than welcome to post over there if you don't want to wait for my opinion. I mean, you've got lots of artists in those groups who would be happy to give you some advice. And that is it for tonight. We will, like I said, I'll do this to where it's open for everybody too, but Saturday, Patreon, I'm guessing we'll do 3 hours because I'm just spent 2 hours and I'm only like halfway through what was already submitted. So we've got a lot to cover on Saturday. I don't know how long that's going to be. Probably very long. It's going to take a lot of coffee. I will see you guys then. And thanks for joining. Also, by the way, make sure to thank our moderators, Joseph and Nick, which I should have mentioned earlier. They both got YouTube channels, art channels here on YouTube. Definitely check them out. Tell them thank you. They help so much. I don't know how I would do anything without them. So yes, you should subscribe to them. I'll see you guys next week.